What's up guys, Dax here, and this week's video topic is how to make your tattoo stencils last longer, okay? So I'm gonna give you some of my best tips that I can think of right off the top of the head right now, okay? So the first things you want to do is number one, you have to look at what you're doing, and are you rubbing the skin down with rubbing alcohol? Are you removing the oils of the skin before you place a stencil? Because that's very important. You want to remove the oils because if you don't, it's easier to wipe it off because there's a little bit of grease on the skin. There's a little bit of oil on the skin. So rub it with rubbing alcohol. Rub the skin with rubbing alcohol before you put a stencil on. Second thing is, what are you using as a stencil applicator? Are you still using green soap like the old school way, which sucks? It's all right, I guess, with regular tattoos, but not with portraits. And if you want your stencil to stay, you got to use something different than green soap. Or are you using deodorant? What I use personally, and what I think is the best, hands down, out of all the stencil applicators out there in the world, is Electrum Stencil Primer. Go check that out. You can check it out at electrumstencilsupply.com. Best stuff. I think it's better than stencil stuff. Stencil stuff I used to use until I used Electrum, which wasn't bad, but it doesn't compare with Electrum by any means. Anchored by Nico Hurtado, that stuff's alright too. Still not as good as Electrum Stencil Primer. Check out Electrum Stencil Primer, and it lasts longer than any other stencil solution, and it's better. It's a win-win all the way around. It's not expensive either. So if you're not using stencil applicator, that's what I recommend. Next thing is, how long are you allowing the stencil to dry? Okay, because that's really important too. I will let my stencils dry for at least 20 minutes. Okay, and it makes all the difference. When I do a portrait, most of the time there's still stencil underneath the portrait, okay? And that's important because you can use even if you use a great stencil applicator, if you only let it dry for 5-10 minutes, it can still wipe away really easily. So are you wiping the skins of the oils? That's number one. Number two would be the stencil applicator. Number three would be, how long are you letting the stencil last? And the fourth tip is, how are you wiping while you're tattooing? Because if you're wiping a little more than you need to, the stencil is going to come off a lot easier. And also, are you wiping into the stencil? Because now you're excessively wiping. You want to wipe away from your stencil at all times. And you also want to make sure that you're not pressing harder than you need to, and you have a clean paper towel, because if you don't have a clean paper towel, you're going to wipe more times than you need to as well. So I hope those tips will help you and help your stencils last longer, because one of the biggest fears with stencils is if they come away, if they fall off before we want them to. That's scary, right? So totally understand. I've totally been there. I hate trying to guess and create a tattoo when my stencil wipes away before I want it to. So these are my best tips, and I know if you apply these and you've had a problem before, this is going to be the solution. One of these four things that I just went through. So once again, this is Dax. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Share this with other artists, maybe apprentice in the shop or whatever. And comment below if you have any more questions. Also, check out my new book, The Savage Way, if you're looking to expand into black and gray realism. Great book. We've been getting great feedback, 10 out of 10. And we also have a training program for portraits. We don't readily give this available. Sometimes we allow enrollment. Sometimes we close enrollment to focus on our students. You would have to go to tattooingportraits.com, subscribe to our newsletter to be notified about stuff like that. Also, if you got a question, my email address is below, askdaxquestions@gmail.com. Send me a short paragraph straight to the point, and if I like it, I'll post the answer in a YouTube video, okay? So, once again, Dax, we'll see you next week. Peace.